Hello Niffies! Welcome back to the channel. Happy New Year! First video of 2021. And on this new channel because if you're new here, I'm Nips, a freelance artist. And a couple months ago I decided to delete all my social media and I decided to come back and I re-uploaded everything. So this is the first official new content video. And today we're going to be working on a Jinx illustration from League of Legends that I did completely on the iPad on Procreate. And so if that's something that you'd like to watch, go ahead, keep watching, and hope you enjoy. All right, let's get right into this. And it's been so long since I've done one of these. It feels good and simultaneously weird, and I'm so nervous. I've already filmed this several times, and I'm nervous. And so let me just start with how we even got to this piece in the first place. And I was doing this thing called Thirsty Thursdays. I don't do them every Thursday, but TLDR, they are kind of pinup streams that we do on Twitch where you guys will pick fan art characters to do fan art of, and I do it kind of like in like this thirsty way. And so Jinx was one of them, and this piece I ended up liking the sketch so much that I decided to just cut the stream short and not finish this one and turn it into a full-fledged illustration. So what I'm using here is the iPad and a program called Procreate, which is something that I use a lot nowadays. The iPad and Procreate is just live and die by those tools. I absolutely love the portability and how much Procreate has evolved since it first came out. And so the reason that I'm mentioning those things, aside from just telling you the tools of my trade here, is that Procreate has a very strict layer limit. And so because I wanted to turn this one into an illustration, I ended up making the canvas size really, really big. I think it's like 16 by like 20 something, and at a very high DPI. And the maximum amount of layers I was allowed to use on this piece was 9. So I decided to not only turn this into an illustration, but take up the challenge of doing this in 9 layers, which if you know much about my art, you know I always do line art. I always have 800 layers. And so I decided to paint this one. And so I have about 32 hours logged on this piece, which is what Procreate says in the canvas information. And so, yeah, this one took me quite some time. The other one that I've painted on Procreate entirely was the Nico drawing, also League of Legends. And this will be my second one. The challenge was just so fun. It's been a long time since I've painted. I would consider maybe this sketch kind of like semi-line art, but there is no line art in this, like real line art that stays. I basically painted the whole thing, and it was really challenging because I'm not used to letting my painting do the talking for me as far as shapes and dynamism and movement and just all of that goes. And so I decided, because I think the colors were going to be a little bit complex, I'm still not knowledgeable enough in color theory to just go straight into color. And so I decided to do the grayscale situation. I know that when you do grayscale to color, it's not, I don't know if accurate is the word, but I know that it doesn't actually translate the colors how they're supposed to be, and they look rather dull or like different. But for me specifically, and I guess you would have to tailor it to your own process and what your weaknesses and strengths are. I personally have an issue with color picking. And so for me, even though the black and white doesn't create full depth and like volume in my colors afterwards, I prefer having good values, which I'm not perfect at, but it's definitely much better than my color picking. And so I prefer to have like semi-accurate values, and then after splash some color on top and know that I'm not married to that color, that I can kind of swap around and change it around if I want to and kind of experiment with the colors rather than go in with a color and then I'm kind of, not that I'm stuck with it because there's always a solution, but I don't know, to me it feels more flexible for my specific weakness. And so what I end up doing is that once I set some colors that I'm happy with, I just merge all of it and then I paint on one layer in color. Here, I finally get to a shape that I like. You'll notice, like if you notice the evolution of the face, because I think the face in this piece is what changes the most. I think I liked the composition a lot. And I think I was very, very overly ambitious with how much I wanted to render this piece, which I think you'll notice is one of my biggest struggles in this piece is like committing to how much because with line art, I still semi have that problem, but it's easier for me to determine where to stop. I specifically have a problem on knowing when to stop, but it's much easier for me to do it with line art. When I paint, I never understand where and when to stop, especially like in areas of the painting, you know, there are some parts that are purposely quote unquote under rendered so that your eye doesn't go there. So for example, her hand in the back is kind of blurred out and really under rendered because I want your eyes to be brought forward into the foreground with the bangs and the face and the bra and stuff. So I kind of purposely don't render that back part, but I feel like that's like an easy one. You get me? Like if I had to go into the nuances of where to render and where not to render, I'm still not experienced enough where I actually know. Like I want to render everything. And I think as the piece goes on, you'll probably see me kind of panicking where I'm like, I want to render this, but I went too far. But did I go far enough? I don't know. And then I start kind of like hovering between this like painting and like really sketchy style. And I think I just end up defaulting to this semi-sketchy style because at this point I had already put in too much time to the drawing and I just wanted to call it done. Because I think it gets to a point, especially for me, where if I put way too much time into a drawing, I no longer, it's not that I stop trying, it's that I need to move on to the next piece with what the information that I gained from this piece and just apply it there. I feel like once I look at something for a little too long, like I need to just cut it. Like I just need to finish it, call it done, learn what I learned from this piece and just apply it to something else because I start not seeing what I'm supposed to be doing or evolving and then I just kind of get lazy. I get lazy and desperate and impatient. And I get too overly ambitious. I get too overly ambitious about, in my head I see it, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna add some fine textures to the bullets here and then make her skin super soft and add variety to the textures. And then I'm just like trying to learn too many things at once, like the painting and the values and the color picking and this and that and the rendering. I kind of overwhelm myself. And so I feel like lowering the ambitious drive for each piece so that I can fully focus on learning several things, not too many things at once, I think will help with the focus and just the motivation to finish each piece. I start thinking, I start galaxy braining on trying to do things that I haven't even, like I don't even do. So you'll see my struggles with like the textures. You see already kind of the brushy, the grainy textures on the bra a little bit and the bullets, and then how I'm trying to keep the skin relatively smooth here. I think one of the other rendering issues that I had was I couldn't find a brush that I liked. In my head, I kind of knew what I wanted as far as finished textures go. And if you guys were on the stream, because I streamed a good chunk of this, you guys will have seen me mess with the brush settings for quite some time, and I still couldn't find a brush setting that I really liked. I ended up kind of finding a midway point, so you'll see me here where I kind of do this painty, brush strokey type style. Here's where what I mentioned earlier comes in, where the face I think is kind of what changes the most in this drawing. I definitely had an evolution of volume, rendering, shapes, expressions, and one of my biggest struggles, which I feel like some people just don't believe me when I say this, maybe I just hide it really well. I guess fake it till you make it, right? And maybe I just fake it really well. But one of my biggest struggles is actually like shapes and how things fall in space, like how tangible they are. And one of the things I have been practicing is anatomy. Like I've been trying to relearn anatomy because I think my foundation on that is so incredibly weak. And I know people don't believe me. Like, this is not a self-deprecating comment. Like, I actually really struggle with planes. You'll notice there are certain poses that I kind of not recycle, but I do pretty often. Like my poses tend to be generally similar because those are the ones I'm comfortable with. But if I have to divert too far from those, I get really uncomfortable. I think that especially with painting and doing expressions, I've gone back to the fundamentals and really trying to break the head down into as many planes as possible. Because I feel like when you're drawing, you know how we have that vision in our head of what we want the drawing to look like or what we want our art style to look like? Mine is like I'm getting more intricate with like the emotions and like how much nuance I put into it, but I can't do that if I suck at like if I suck at anatomy and planes. And so I have to go back and relearn the planes of the face and the body in order for me to apply that vision that I have in my head. Does that make any sense? And so that's kind of what I've been doing. So there's been a lack of dynamism in my pieces for quite some time because I just keep drawing portraits and trying to break them down and get used to it as much as possible. You'll notice here that I just start putting like that texture everywhere. Did you notice like the hair, the body starts getting like those lines, like semi-textured lines, the face. I just kind of not give up, but I just decide to just go with the flow and see where it takes me because at this point I've already spent too much time on it. But I feel like the face for sure had the biggest improvement. I think before that, it didn't necessarily look like her too much. And not that this one is perfect, but I feel like the shapes and the painting are much nicer. I feel like I definitely there's a lot of improvement to do as far as planes of the face go, but I think the improvement on the face is something I'm really proud of for this piece. The explosion is something I really wanted to go a little bit more all out on, but at that point I was already kind of fed up and I wasn't sure how to render what I wanted. I had a vision in my head and I think the background was the one where it showed the most that it just did not come out the way I had envisioned. And so I kind of just started putting stuff everywhere and motion blurring it and hoping that it looked like something. The tattoos were another one where the way that I had the tattoos done was that in the values, I had the tattoos set to multiply black and white on top of the values. So that way I could work on the tattoos without messing the dynamics of the body up. So I could freely paint the tattoos and they would match the shape of the body. But because I ended up merging everything, it became really hard to paint the tattoos, not only in color, but I then had to match the shape of the body. And so I ended up just leaving them very, very unrendered and sketchy looking. And I'm not necessarily super happy with it since in my head I had another vision, but with how they came out now looking at it, they're not super distracting and they're just kind of rendered enough that they're there and you know what they are. I don't hate it, but I definitely feel like I could have gotten them to a place where they were closer to my vision. Here I ended up, you'll notice I got really frustrated with the tattoo and I just went ahead and I put that that little spark in front there. This piece really towards the end, I feel like my desperation is so tangible. You can just see me losing it. I'm like, please, let's end this now. So yeah. This is what the finished piece looks like. I will definitely try my best to take what I learned from this and create some more fun pieces in the future. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm sorry if I ranted. This is what you're gonna get here. I have not done this in a long time, so I do apologize, but yeah, that was the piece. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Go ahead and follow me on my new social media accounts on Twitter, Instagram. I'm on TikTok now, and there will be a poster for this. I will keep you guys posted on my socials when those do come in, and I will see you guys next video. Bye.